Hey guys, if you're watching this, it means you made it through all of my C++ tutorials, or you skipped them because you know enough already, and you are ready to move on to graphics and adding graphics to your video games. So what we're going to be doing today is just installing what's called Sdl, and Sdl stands for Simple Direct Media Layer. What it does is it gives us a cross-platform way to open up a window, get input from the user, and even draw images, though we're not really going to be using the image stuff since we're going to be focusing on OpenGL in these tutorials, since eventually we want to make a 3D game, and we can't really make a 3D game with just Sdl. So let's go ahead and open up our little browser here, and what I have pulled up is libsdl.org. I'll put the link in the description. Now, as I've said, Simple Direct Media Layer is a cross-platform dev library for providing access to audio, keyboard, mouse, joystick. Now, we're only going to be using it for like getting mouse input, keyboard input, opening up a window, and it kind of interfaces with OpenGL a little bit too, so that we can draw all our OpenGL stuff to the window very easily. So to download this, you want to go down here to Downloads at the bottom left. Sdl 2.0 is the one you want. Now, if you're on Windows, you should be using Visual Studio. That's how I'm going to show you to install it. And if you're on Windows and you're not using Visual Studio, I recommend that you use it. You'll want this one right here, this vc.zip one. If you're on Mac OS, obviously you want the .dmg one. And if you're on Linux, you're going to have to like Google your specific distribution. It's a little tougher. There are other ways to do Windows other than Sdl. There's something called GLFW for window management. You can use that. Let's see if I can find that. GLFW. I believe this is cross-platform. Yep, multi-platform inputs, events. You can use this instead. I'm going to show Sdl though, so you'll have to watch tutorials for that separately. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and download this vc.zip. If you're on Mac OS, I can't show you exactly how to install it because obviously I'm not on a Mac computer, but I will show you kind of how to install it also with code blocks. I'll just show you how to do some of the same steps. I'm not going to do a full install, but I'll kind of show you. So you should be able to get it figured out. But if you're on Windows, this should be pretty easy. So I've already actually copied this to my desktop. So what I did is I downloaded that. It should give you a zip file. Now in this zip file is all the stuff you'll need. Now I'm just going to leave this on my desktop for now, and I'm going to make a new project. We're going to make our computer graphics project. So I'm opening up Visual Studio, and I'm going to go File, New Project. And you've done this before, so you should know what I'm doing here. I'm going to do an empty project, and I'm going to name it, Graphics Tutorials. There we go. I'm going to click OK. My voice might start to crack up in the middle of this. I've got water, though. Okay, so now we have our new little Graphics Tutorials empty project. Of course, we got to add Main Dot Cpp, so let's go ahead and add that. Source.cpp should be main.cpp, and that will add it. There we go. So here's our blank main.cpp. So now what we want to do is we want to include Sdl in this this little project here. It's not in by default. We can't just type #include Sdl at the top. We have to actually do what's called linking the library, and then we have to include the header files. So what we're going to do is take this Sdl develop.zip thing, and I went ahead and extracted it to my desktop. So you right click and you hit extract here, and then it'll drop this folder that has the same name to your desktop. Then I opened up the little file browser, and I'm going to Documents, Visual Studio 2013, Projects, and then Graphics Tutorials. So your graphics tutorials, or whatever your project name, should be in a directory similar to this. So right here where you see this graphics tutorials.solution, that's your solution directory. You can double click on this and it'll actually open up your graphics tutorial solution. We want to put the library here, but we're going to put it in a separate folder. We're going to make a new folder here, and we're going to call it DEPS, D-E-P-S, and that stands for Dependencies. Now you don't have to put it in this folder. This is just a really clean way to put all of your external dependencies in one spot. And dependency basically just means, you know, some external library that your code depends on. For instance, for us it'll be Sdl. So we're going to go ahead and double click on this, and I'm going to double click on Sdl devel whatever, and it'll open up this folder. So this is the VC version. I'm going to double click again on this, and here we have a folder with include and lib, and then a bunch of like readme stuff. So let's go in this deps folder and let's make a Sdl directory. This is an optional step, but I recommend doing it. It keeps things nice and organized. We're going to make a directory called Sdl, and then we're going to open that, and I'm going to copy all of this stuff into Sdl like that. Okay, so now it's all in Sdl. So now anytime we want to look at our Sdl library, we can come here. And what I'm also going to do is make another directory in here called include, and another directory called lib. Now, I made this Sdl folder here. That's actually an optional step. You don't have to do that. I just put it there so I would be able to come back to it if I ever needed it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this include directory, and you're going to see all of these header files. So these are header files that your code will be able to use to be able to include. For instance, we have error stuff in here if you wanted Sdl error. We've got Sdl OpenGL. That should be included when you include the main header file. We've got like input stuff, thread stuff, timing stuff. We aren't going to use a lot of this, but Sdl is really a big library, so it has a lot of stuff. And then there's also this lib directory, and it has two folders in it, x64 and x86. If you're building for 64-bit, you'll use x64. If you're building for 32-bit, which I'm going to be just building for 32-bit, and you're probably building for 32-bit, so a safe bet is to just go with that. Then you're going to use the x86. So if we open this up, you're going to see some files here. You're going to see 3 .lib files. Now these contain all of the .cpp files. It's all the code that you're going to be running. The header files just kind of tell you what the API for the library is and lets you actually use the code. The code is stored here. And then this DLL, it's called a dynamic linked library. This allows your program to access the library and link it at runtime. But you don't really need to know about how all that works. You can Google that to learn more information. So what we're going to do is we're going to take this include directory, and I'm going to copy it and paste it right here, and it's going to merge with this include directory. So now this include directory has all of the Sdl stuff. And actually, don't do that. I'm going to undo that. Instead, make a new directory in deps include. So in include, make a new directory called Sdl, because we don't want to have all our header files for all our different libraries running together. So just like we did in the deps folder, make a specific Sdl directory in the include folder. This is optional, but it makes it much cleaner. And I'm going to paste. So now we can't copy the include. So let's go back to Sdl include, and I'm going to type Control A. That will highlight everything, and then Control C to copy it. Then I'll come back and go to the include folder, Sdl, and paste it there. There, that took a little longer than I liked. Now we're going to go back to Sdl again and go to the lib folder. And since we want to build for 32-bit, we're going to open up the x86 folder, and we're going to take these 3 lib files, the .libs, not the DLL, just the .libs. We're going to grab those, we're going to copy, and we are going to paste it in this lib folder. Now in the lib folder, if you want, you could make a specific Sdl folder, but I actually don't like to do that for lib. I only like to do it for include. It doesn't really have much of a point to do it with the lib folder, and you'll see why in a little bit. Okay, so now we have our directory with all our stuff in it. Now we can actually link to this in our project. There's one more thing we want to do. We want to go, actually we'll do that in a second. So first let's actually link the library. So what we're going to do is open up our graphics tutorials project here. Here we are, and what we want to do first is get the include files. That'll be a little easy thing to do. We're going to go to Graphics Tutorials Properties. I click Project here at the top, and then Graphics Tutorials Properties. Alternatively, you can right-click over here on the right and go to Properties. And you're going to see a bunch of stuff. This is all your project properties. You can change a whole lot of stuff in here. You can change the optimization and all that. You can change different settings for the different configurations. Right now, I've only taught you about debug configuration, so we're going to stick to that. But in the future, I will teach you about release configuration so we can actually optimize our code. So I'm getting on a tangent here. What we want to do is go to VC++ directories. Now this is going to give you 2 little options here. One's called include directories and one's called library directories. So let's go to include directories first. This is where we're going to include all of those .h files I showed you. So come over here to the right, you'll see a little down arrow. We'll click on that and then click edit right here. And right here is where we're going to put the include directories. So what we could do is we could open up our folder here and just, or this one right here, go to the include folder, and we want this directory to be included there. So we could copy this path right here and use it, but a better way, in case you want to share your project with friends, is to, instead of using a path that's relative to your machine, we'll use a path relative to your actual project. And to do that in Visual Studio, you type $ parentheses solution dir in parentheses, and I'll zoom in here because I know this text is probably really small for y'all. Zoom, there we go. $ parentheses solution dir, and then we're going to say deps like that, and then slash. So that's going to basically say the directory that our solution is, and the solution is the .sln file. So if we go back to graphics tutorials, you'll see this .sln. So it'll work out where that directory is, and then it'll go in here to deps. And then finally, we need to go to include. So let's add include right here at the end, and then a slash. So this is going to tell our compiler that we want to look for extra header files here. So let's go ahead and click OK and apply. Now let's see if it worked. Let's type #include at the top here, and let's type SDL. There it is, and it pops up in the IntelliSense, so we know that's working. And let me also do the little zoom thing that I usually do. There we go. Okay, so we're going to type include SDL slash, because remember, we created this SDL folder. If we didn't create the SDL folder, we wouldn't have this SDL slash here. So SDL slash SDL.h. There we go. So that's going to include SDL, but we're not quite done. We have the header files, but we don't have the CPP files. So let's go ahead and make a quick int main here, and we're going to just do something simple. We're going to make an SDL function call. Now the function call I'm going to make is SDL init. Now this initializes SDL. It basically sets up all of SDL's stuff, and you can put different arguments in here to make it set up different things. If you just want to set up everything, you type SDL underscore init underscore everything, I think that's it. Yeah, there we go. And we'll learn more about what all this does later. We just need to test it. So as you can see, it's defined. We can mouse over it. Everything highlights. This makes sense. If we run it, though, we should get linker errors. So let's go ahead and run it. There we go. We got build errors. And it says entry point must be defined. That's a different linker error. Let me pause the video because that's annoying. Okay, after a quick Google, I figured out what is wrong. It's actually good that I have these bugs during the tutorials, so if you have the bugs, you'll know how to fix them. So to fix this issue where it says unresolved, or sorry, let me run it again. Where it says entry point must be defined, you go to Project, Graphics Tutorial Properties, then in your properties, you're going to have something that says linker. You're going to go in there, and then you're going to go to System, and you're going to see Subsystem here at the top. So click on that drop down, and this is going to let you set the subsystem. We want to use the console, so we're going to set Subsystem Console, hit Apply, and then now when we run it, it won't give us that error. Instead, we're going to get an SDL error, and that's actually what we expected. So here we get the error, unresolved external symbol, SDL init, referenced in our main function, and a bunch of other ugly looking stuff. So what this is telling us is we've referenced this function SDL init, we made a call to SDL init, but it isn't resolved. The symbol isn't resolved, meaning basically we don't have the CPP file that defines that symbol. So in order to get that, what we have to do is link those .lib files. So first we need to go back to Graphics Tutorial Properties, and we need to go back to VC++ Directories, and I'll zoom in. And we're going to go here to Library Directories, and we need to do basically the exact same thing we did with the include directory. So we're going to click here, edit, and we're going to type the $ solution dir deps slash, and instead of include, we're going to say /lib, like that. And then we click OK. So now it knows what directory to look in for the libraries, but it doesn't know which libraries we want to use. We have to specifically tell it which library we want to use. And so what we're going to do is click on linker here, and that'll open up the linker, and we want to go to input. And now what we have to do is link the library. We have to tell our program we want to use the specific library. Otherwise, it's going to include all the libraries in that file, and we might not necessarily want to include all of them. So in the input, you're going to see at the top here additional dependencies. Notice how it's called dependencies, just like our deps folder. We're going to go here, and we're going to move the magnifier out of the way. And you're going to see a little drop down arrow here on the side. We're going to click that, click edit, And here is where we add additional dependencies. So we're going to put stuff here that we want to link to. So if we go to our SDL include thing, our lib folder, we have 3 different libs here. I believe the one we want is SDL2 main. I'm going to cheat here and open up Sdl Andromeda, which is using the same libraries, and I'm going to go to linker, input, and I see, oh, it includes all of them. Okay, so we have to include all 3 of these libraries. I don't think the order matters, but it might, and if it does, we will find out. So we have sdl.lib, SDL2.lib, SDL2main.lib, and SDL2test.lib. I actually don't think we need test.lib. So let's just try SDL2lib and SDL2main. SDL2.lib, and then you press enter, SDL2main.lib. And there we go. That should do it. Apply, and let's run. We get default lib msvcrt conflicts with other libraries. That's a different warning. And we have unresolved external symbol SDL main reference in function main. Let me try to remember how to fix this bug. Give me 1 second. Okay, that's right. So as you can see, what I had to do is add this up here. So I'm going to delete that and we'll type it in. And so basically what happened is whenever you include SDL.h, what it does is it creates its own main function in SDL. So SDL actually has the main function. Your program no longer owns the entry point of the application. What SDL is going to do is it's going to call your main function. So in order for it to call your main function, you have to put some additional stuff in these parentheses here. And this is stuff you can actually always put in your main function. This is how you get command line arguments. So for instance, if we open up our CMD here, so a command line argument would be something like if we type, if you're on a Unix system, you can type ls and that'll show all of your directories and stuff. You can also type ls and you can add some additional stuff like -la or something. I'm going to zoom in here, like -la, and this -la is what's called a command line argument. ls is a program that runs, so that's like calling the int main in that program, and then we pass in some additional stuff called command line arguments, and that'll make different stuff happen. So SDL needs to pass in some stuff to us basically, or it tries to pass in some stuff. So what we need to do is define in our parameter list here, we need int argc, and you should call it this because that's what everybody calls it. And this stands for argument count. It's the number of command line arguments. Then we type comma and then char, double star argv, and this is the actual list of arguments. I know it looks scary. What it is it's an array of C strings, because remember a pointer is an array. So a double star is basically, you can think of it as a array of char stars, which could be a C string or whatever you want. But this, I was not even supposed to teach you this in this tutorial, so we'll go more over that later. You actually don't need to do anything with this after you do this, so we should be fine now. So let's go ahead and run it. And yay! Now we did get an error, but it ran. You'll see we opened up the command prompt here. Now the error we're getting is the program can't start because sdl2.dll is missing from your computer. Try reinstalling, blah, blah. We don't want to reinstall. What happened was we forgot, on purpose, we forgot to add the DLL to our executable directory. So whenever we ran the game, it created this debug folder right here because we're running in debug configuration. Now if we double click on that, you'll see the .exe, the graphics tutorials.exe. We can double click on this and run our program. So if you wanted to send your game to your friends, you could send them this .exe right here. We're going to back out, we're going to go to deps, and we're going to go to SDL and lib and x86, and you'll see this .dll file, sdl2.dll. This is the file that it said was missing. So this is your dynamically linked library. We're going to copy that, and I'm going to come back to graphics tutorials, go to debug, and all you got to do is paste it in the same directory as the .exe, just like that. And now it will be able to find it. So if we run the exe, we don't get the error. And that means everything is working fine. We can also run it from here, and we get no errors. It runs SDL init, and then it returns 0. So now we can actually open up Windows and do cool stuff. In the next tutorial, we're going to actually install OpenGL. And then we're going to open our first window and actually do a bunch of stuff. But I need to show you, if you have Visual Studio, you can go ahead and hit end the video right now. If you don't have Visual Studio, I want to show you real quick some things you can do with code blocks to do basically the same thing, to do the linking and all that. I have this project graphics test here. If you want to add the include files, I believe you go to settings and then compiler and search directories. There we go. So for the include files, like the header files, you're going to just click add here and you're going to add the directory. I don't know if you can do like a solution dir thing. You can Google that. But you may have to do the full path. I mean, I'm sure you can do the solution dir thing. I'm just not sure how the syntax is for this compiler. So that's your .h. That's the equivalent of the VCC directories thing right here where we did, here we go, where we did include directories. Now for library directories, you have to go to linker and do the same thing. You click add and you add your thingy. And then to actually link the library, you go over here to your project, you right click on it and go to build options. And then you go to linker settings, yes, and then here it says link libraries. So this is the equivalent of going to linker and input. Oh god, it's messed up. Sometimes that happens. Properties. This is the equivalent to adding those additional dependencies here. You're basically just going to add sdl2.lib and sdl2main.lib to this list right here. So, yep, thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next tutorial where we will install OpenGL, and then we can finally get started with advanced C++ and graphics so we can make really cool video games. Thanks for watching, guys.